Hello, everyone. Welcome to the YouTube Mall Builders Thursday night general hangout. Thursday's hangouts are for the general discussion on mall railroading that we all can set a topic to discuss for the night. My name is Johnny Reb from Southeast Rails. Excuse me. Thursday's hangouts are the proud sponsor of YouTubeMallBuilders.com, the e-magazine, YouTube Mall Builders live show. You can go to YouTubeMallBuilders.com, and there you'll be able to get scheduled for the Tuesday night presentations, which are every other week now. I think the next one coming up is Gino's show, and last time I looked, it was to be announced what the subject was going to be.
It's on tools.
Tools. All right. Thank you. Then we got the eMag. You can sign up for email notification. So when it comes out, which will be approximately the middle of this month, I think it is, you'll get notified of that. The eMag is a PDF file. You can read it on a lot of different platforms, medias, iPhones, tablets, whatever. JD and his crew does a great job on that. Then you got the YouTube Mall Builders live show schedule there also. That's hosted by Big Bill, directed by Barry. Get scheduled there, see what the next show's topic's going to be. They always have a good show. Of course, you got the Thursday night hangouts every week. I want to say thanks to everyone for joining in tonight's show. Let's see, who we got on the panel tonight? We got Phil. Got Mr. Newcastle. He's not new to the Hangouts, but I think this is the first time he's been on the show. Got Mark over there up in the northeast. Got Jim in the more northern east. Scott. Then we got Mr. Hawks in Canada. We got Dave, and we got Andy. Maybe Australia join us a little later. And I want to say hello to everybody that's viewing in the Q&A there. If anyone's got any questions, be sure and put them in the Q&A, and we'll see what we can do about getting them answered. Got any comments? Put those up there too. All righty. Anybody got anything specific they want to talk about? And here comes the elevator music.
Well, I do.
Crickets.
Hi, Mr. Hawks, you got the floor.
It's concerning, I guess, DCC with NCE. I don't know, Andy. Do you have NCE or do you have Digitrax?
I have a Sprague right now. I favor NCE, and I have a little bit more experience with NCE than Digitrax, a little bit more on the user side. I intended to buy NCE, but to get started, I bought a Sprague so I could start programming locomotives, and just fell in love with that little device and just using Y throttle and using JMRI, and I prefer using that. But NCE's a good system. It's my preference.
Okay, because my question is this. Right now, I've got probably 1/3 of my layout done, and maybe in 2-3 years from now, when everything is finished, I want to hook it up to the computer.
Sure.
Now, it could be GMRI, or I think it's train controller. Or, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What I want to do now is I want to be able to move trains around. I want to be able to test all my tracks. I want to test all different types of operation. Now, I was told that if I put a toggle switch, it won't work with the computer. Is that right?
Are you talking about for turnout control?
Yeah, for turnout controls.
Yeah, the problem, okay, so you could use a toggle switch by the definition of the word, has a toggle on the front of it, but it has to be momentary contact, center off. So you'd push it up for one position, down for the other, but it would spring back to center. The reason being is if you have a toggle switch and holds it into one position, then one of two things happens. Either the computer system can't control the turnout, can't override that setting.
That's right.
Or it gets out of sync, and that's the biggest issue. So as long as you use a toggle that goes either or, my preference for using it with NCE, this is not true with Digitrax, but with NCE and using NCE switches, is using just a momentary contact button. When you hit the button, it reverses direction. Whatever it's in, you hit the button, it goes the other way.
Okay, that's what I was going to talk about too. Is instead of toggle switch, I was going to use one of those push buttons.
Sure, preference.
Now, since I don't know much about electronics, it took me almost like a month to figure out how to wire a toggle switch with 6 pins. Now, a push button only has 2 pins. Now, I'm totally, I don't know, up in the air. I have no idea how to wire the rest of the stuff.
So you're currently wiring directly to the tortoise, right?
Yeah.
So what you have to do to allow JMRI or Railroad Company or whatever piece of software to control that switch as well is to have a switching controller. Most of your NCE guys use the Switch It or the Switch 8 or something, little controller boards, and it controls the turnout. Your push button just tells the Switch It what to do, and also JMRI has the option of telling it what to do.
Okay, so are you talking about the MK8 or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a designator for it. That sounds right. Yeah, and then you use the AUI for feedback so that you can get back. So JMRI can establish what is the reality of the position of a turnout. Also, let me point you to something. Steve Mosconi, I hope I pronounced that right, but Steve Mosconi or whatever from the Mosconi Railroad, he's been on here talking about some things too.
Yeah.
He has an excellent series on signaling, but it also speaks to turnouts and some of that stuff, but it's mostly about how to signal using NCE equipment, and it's a series of YouTube videos that are exceptional.
Okay, because for now, I just want to run trains, so I don't, I bought about 50 toggle switch, and basically I'm not going to use them anymore, because I don't want to have to redo stuff that I've done. So by installing the push buttons right away, then I'll be prepared for 2-3 years from now when the computer system goes on.
You will, but here's going to be the caveat or the issue is you either have to make one of two decisions. You either have to put the toggle switches in now and wire them that way, but wire them in such a way that it's to terminal strips like what you're doing there. So it's going to be easy to rip that toggle out and plug the MK8 boards in. Or you have to go ahead and put the MK8s in immediately. And I would favor the first option myself. But.
Okay, well, that's my intention, to put the boards in right away, especially the boards that have to do with the tortoises, the push button, and anything else. I don't want to go into the signalization system right away.
No, you don't have to at all. That's totally additive.
Okay.
And that doesn't cost you, I mean, it costs you the money to buy the MK8 boards, but you don't have to buy anything for the signaling system. You don't have to think about it, but buying the MK8s preps you to be able to do that. The only thing is then you add AIU, I hope I'm saying that right, AIO, AUI. You add the AUI boards and you add the signal controllers and all that stuff later. So the process doesn't, you're not wasting any money or losing any effort. Everything you would do to add signaling or anything additional would be entirely additive, nothing subtractive.
Okay. Okay, that's been great help. It's because I've posted it in the YouTube Google Plus, and 2 people answered, but nobody went into details. I'm wondering, is that the right place to post questions, or?
It is, because I see a lot of feedback on there, and I do try to feedback on there some. A lot of times, I have a hard time finding time to sit down and write on there. So a lot of times these Hangouts tend to be the best source of information, in my opinion. They keep me from having to sit down and create a YouTube video and edit it and all that. I have the best intention of doing some of that stuff, but I have a hard time finding the time. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. So the Hangouts are just such a great mechanism because they're so easy to ask questions. But the G Plus is a great way, and there's a lot of people who will give you feedback there.
Mm-hmm.
And I will too if I find time to do it.
My next questions, I mean, a little bit later, will be the wiring part of it. Like I said, a push button only has 2 pins.
Yep. Okay, so
So,
here's how this works on the MK8s. All it has is a single signal pin that you hook on the MK8. It's a loop that comes from the MK8 through the push button back to the MK8. So all it's doing is taking the signal on the MK8, taking the signal pin on the MK8, and taking the signal high, and then the MK8 then wires to your tortoise control. So all it has is two wires coming off, one to one leg of the momentary contact, one from the other leg back to the board.
okay.
Paul, if you don't mind, mute your mic, please, so we don't have background noise. Thank you. Go ahead, Hawks.
I just lost my train of thought. uh,
I think I hear 611 coming.
All right, now we're talking.
I don't know. I like push buttons just for push buttons on control of the switches. I would rather have this toggle switch in the middle and then the push buttons on each end. If you throw the toggle switch one direction, then you have to still press the push button. The one problem I had on one layout we operated on was it had a little bit of a narrow aisleway that people kept pushing the push buttons by accident.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's actually, I've seen some pretty cool videos on how to get around that problem by taking a cap. This guy took like a cap off of something. I don't remember what it was, but taking a cap, inserting that back into your fascia, so your fascia would be out here, inserting it back into your fascia and putting the push button in there, so you kind of reached in a little bit. He used a cap that was smaller than this, but so the push button was depressed below the fascia so you could walk by. That's a great idea, because toggle switches or push buttons, you're going to break them by walking down the aisle.
yeah.
Yeah, another thing, it's a little cheaper to do too, unless you've got a lot of bottles with caps, is you can just use a spade bit drill and drill a countersunk hole, and
Yep.
it leaves you a center mark so you can go ahead and drill all the way through with a smaller drill.
Yep.
And put your push button inside the hole there.
As long as your fascia is thick enough to do it. Now, a lot of us that use like masonite or hardboard or styrene, in my case, it's too thin a material, so you've got to get back in there for some reason. A lot of people are leaning.
Well, you can back it up. You can back it
Yeah.
up. Just stick you another piece of masonite, glue it right behind it.
Sure.
Some type of frame.
Yeah.
Yep. Just glue glue a few layers of masonite. That makes sense.
I just remembered what it was.
So what I've decided to do, and what Troy is experimenting with as well, it's still yet to be decided if that's going to work for him, because he's using Digitrax, and that the control electronics are a little different on Digitrax than NCE. But since the way I'm doing mine with my controller boards from Tam Valley are single, just like the NCE systems, they're single contact to flip it both ways. I'm putting a reed switch under the head block ties, or between the head block ties, and covering that in ballast. That lets me take the little stick that has a magnet on the end of it that I use for decoupling cars, and you just take that little magnet, sweep it over that reed switch, it makes a contact, and it flips the turnout. So all I'm doing is you're walking around with your stick and an iPod, and I'm going to make a little thing for the stick to go on the iPod, but you're walking around with that stick, and you just sweep it over the magnet, the turnout changes position, and you see it all right up on the top of the layout. That's another way to do it too.
Yeah, I got two comments here. I want to skip the one that's highlighted right now, because Curtis put up here, that was Ken Patterson that did and added lights in, whatever that comment was.
Oh yeah, he's talking about the panels, and Ken Patterson does. He recesses the panels. He actually takes plexiglass or whatever. What is that called these days? Lexan. Takes Lexan. Takes pinstriping tape and pinstripes on the back of it. Actually, let's see. So there's a couple ways. One, you could paint the back of it, or lay that tape down, and then paint the back of it, then rip that tape off, and then paint over that a little bit so that it fills that tape in with a different color. Then you can see your track plate on the front. There's a couple other ways to get that same result that may or may not be better, but that's a great way. It looks good. And then he drills a hole, he puts his little switches. Then he cuts out the styrofoam and recesses the panel back in the styrofoam. And he builds his bench. I basically modeled the way I'm building my layout off from the way he's doing his. And I had seen my way before too, but he does it with panels. But somebody released a video recently on another way to do that so that you could back illuminate the track plan through that Lexan. And that was really interesting.
Yeah. I also got a comment from, what are you doing in the Q&A, Scott? I want to say hey to Chris, to White, everybody else out there that's in the Q&A. Otto made the comment, PVC plumbing caps works great for mounting push buttons.
Oh, yeah, they would have a nice thick lip to glue to or something, too.
Yeah. Hillbilly Railroad, Scott, what is Dwight making, and is it hard to make? Dwight's not in here.
He's probably talking about Hawks, because Hawks is the one working on camera.
Yeah. Yeah, Hawks is making up wiring for his Tauruses.
Almost call him a harness connector or something, like a little harness for his turnouts.
I got another comment here from Bruce. I found AZ Rock and Mineral Company, HO Mainline Ballast, and Union Pacific. I will be modeling from 1969 to as late as 1985. The DDA 40X and Fast 40s Air. How is the quality and sizing for HO? Really enjoy these Hangouts. Thanks. Appreciate that, Bruce. All right, Andy, take that one.
All right, Arizona, I'm really picky about ballast. I'm incredibly picky about ballast. I think it's one of the things that just getting the track right, in my opinion, and the scenery of the track. And ballast is one of the most critical things you can do. Weathering, ballast, and the line side detail, telephone poles, the little signal towers, the little relay boxes, all this stuff. That's so critical. All the scenery as it goes away from the track becomes less and less critical. Ballast is important. Arizona Rock and Mineral is one of the best. Leaf Express is a pretty good product too. I hate the Woodland Scenics product. It's made out of walnut shells. Arizona Rock and Mineral is decomposed granite. It is the same product that actually holds railroad track down in just a much smaller version. I think it's exceptional. The color is good if you get the right color. It's also granite. It's rock. So it takes staining well, but you have to stain it with a dry medium like unsanded grout. That's what I do. It's a great device. It's great, but you got to get the size right. It's really tricky. And actually, Jimmy might want to. Is he still in here? Jimmy, where you at, Jimmy? Yeah, when he comes back, can kind of speak to sizing because he ordered some based on some recommendations and it was wrong. Sizing's really critical, and I took Mike's and spec'd the size of ballast I was using to what I thought was close to the prototype, 2.5, 3-inch stones, and it looked too small. As best I could do that. That's really hard, and it wasn't. And it's not hardly large enough. I like slightly larger than scale, slightly, because I like seeing the granularity in it. It makes it look like it's stone. Some things you got to do out of scale a little bit to get them right. So I like the Arizona Rock and Mineral, and Jimmy ought to chime in on the sizing since he got the sizes he got.
He is when you get done. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I didn't use the Arizona Rock. I used the Scenic Express.
Andy, we're echoing.
Doggone it.
Their ballast is also real crushed granite. Their number 50 is excellent for N scale and prototypical HO. I bought the 40. The 40 is still pretty darn small. I mean, it's grain of sand small. When I called the Scenic Express and I asked them which was best to use, they kind of got it backwards. They told me 30 was prototypical, but everybody used 40 and sometimes the 50. So I ordered 2 half-gallon jugs of 40. And when I got it, I realized, okay, this looks a little smaller than what I wanted. So I ordered a 50 because I thought it was a little larger. And it turns out, no, it's even smaller. So my recommendation, if you try Scenic Express, maybe get a small amount in 40 and a small amount in 30. 30 is a little bit larger, so they say. So, but it's good. It's good stuff. I like it so far. What little bit I've used of it. I've got 3 half-gallon jugs of it. Half-gallon jugs are only, you catch it on sale for about $22, which should do quite a bit. But also, I just heard from someone a couple weeks ago that Woodland Scenic's ballast is now natural rock. I do not know if that's true. They seen it on their website or something somewhere.
That's
In
it.
our, yeah.
That was me.
Okay, I knew somebody had mentioned that.
And that's what it says on their website. But
Okay.
the stuff that I bought, because is what I'm using, is the Woodland Scenics. And there is a little line down here that say, allergy cautions. Content contains tree nut byproducts. But yet their website says that it's 100% crushed rock. So I don't know if that's what they used to, and I bought old product, or what.
It used to be walnut shells, and and the color and size and everything's not necessarily wrong, but to me, and this won't matter to everybody, to my eye, when I look at it, real close and looking at the detail, the walnut shells are, for lack of a better way to describe it, are too square. Maybe is the wrong way to say it. The edges are too square. The particles don't look rounded off enough, whereas a stone of ballast is rounded around the edges because it's run through a crusher and it gets beat up. And
Yeah, the walnut shells have too much of a geometric shape.
yeah, that's what I see
Straight
too.
Straight lines.
That annoys me. But if they're going to all rock, that's awesome. That's a big improvement. I mean, Woody has some good products. I use plenty of them. Their field grass is as good as any you can get. But their ballast annoys me. Like I said, I'm pickier than most people in general, and ballast is one of those things that I'm overly picky about.
Well, I'm on their website now, Phil,
Yes.
under ballast and coal,
Uh-huh.
and they don't mention that it's real rock. They just say, again, allergy caution contains tree nut byproducts.
Okay.
Also, look at their coal, for example. It looks like shavings off from something. They're elongated. And I'm, from coal country and model coal country, coal doesn't look like that. Coal actually looks like walnut shells. It's blocky and square, and it looks like shaving.
Oh, maybe what you're thinking, Phil, is it says realistically model railroad track, crushed rock and stones. But it doesn't say that it's actually crushed rock and stone. I don't know. I'm not sure what you read, so let's see.
Well, either am I, because as most of you know, most of that stuff on the internet I can't read anyways very well. So
Right.
Most of it's made up anyway. It's the internet. You can't trust it.
Well, Jim, he couldn't remember keeping you up till 4 o'clock talking about mailboxes either.
That's right. That's right.
It sounds like something I would have done, but not recently. I got on a mailbox kick a few months ago, trying to model mailboxes accurately, and I went round and round and tried 4 or 5 different manufacturers, Woodland Scenics, and found these mailboxes from Selly that I like better than anybody else's. Right now, I'm on a telephone pole kick, so I've been making telephone poles out of wood. I bought 3 or 4 different products, Ricks and these, and I brought another one too, and I haven't found what I like exactly yet.
I mostly just crush my own rock and different stuff, though. I'm on a budget, though. Also, I would rather buy some switches, though it actually looks more realistic than some of the William Scenic products. And that's $11, $15 in the store, or I forget what the price actually is though. So I crushed it up in a just in a cooking pan, and then I spread it out and I mixed it together. When I see like people just using the one kind of ballast, it looks like maybe CSX. It always looks like one kind of ballast on CSX. For my prototype, they always had a mixed color.
Just exactly how did you brush that rock up, using a hammer or what?
Mostly, yeah, sledge. I think it was I forget what kind of hammer it was though. I mostly just crushed it up with a hammer,
Yeah,
and then
big heavy.
I just and then I sorted it through a screen with just a hammer, and then I sorted it through a like a cooking screen to get the sizes, to make sure there wasn't too big of lumps.
That's what I do as well. So I start with this paver base. This bag was like $5, and it's, I haven't put a dent in it, and I screen it down into getting kind of smaller sizes, and then the large stuff I just take outside and throw in a hole I got, and then here. So it's just paver base, whatever what they call it paver base, but it's called often called leveling sand for laying pavers in out in your garden, and it's mixed stone gravel. And then I sift out the relatively small stuff, and then I run it through. I don't run the big stuff, but I run the smaller stuff through my little coffee grinder, and just bust it up into something kind of smaller, and I get a material that looks like.
Well, Andy, weren't you supposed to do a demonstration tonight on actually making that?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. I can do that. I got that.
I think it's a great idea, and it saves some money if you've got the time to do all that and sift all that and what. And I probably got the time, but I'm lazy. I'm a lazy modeler.
It hasn't be that much time to do it, but I mean, it makes looks like ballast. And then it gives me that, and it gives me that, which is the slightly larger stuff. And then all I do is mix, so that it's too gray on its own, and I mix white unsanded grout into it. Hang on, you guys talk amongst yourself. I'll find that.
So here is the screener for what I use for the coal. And I also mix because we have a wood burner. I also mix in a little bit for coke, because I model partly the steel industry and the coke ovens. I mix in a little bit of pretty much wood charcoal, burnt charcoal, and then sometimes I'll mix a little bit of limestone dust. So this takes a lot of work to crush.
Yeah.
I forgot who asked the question. If you don't feel like making your own, give Scenic Express a look too, because I like theirs. It's definitely real granite. I don't know what the cost comparison is, but like I say, I buy the half gallons, or they retail at $29.95. ModelTrainStuff.com is where I buy all my supplies from. They have sales all the time on Scenic supplies. And the last half-gallon jug I bought, they had a 25% off, so it was only about $20. And then I just make sure I order something else to help pay for the shipping. But
and then white grout, unsanded grout with polymer is what it's called. The polymer is the dry latex adhesive additive, which I've got some of that separate too that I add to it. I add that polymer to it, and then all you have to do is wet it. And grout is essentially polymer dry latex, which is a latex adhesive, somewhat like latex paint. It has a rubbery quality to it, and Portland cement, which is has some issues. Portland cement is the kind of cement that's very, very fine. It's extremely hard, when dry or when hard. But it's also not environmentally friendly. That's what people make a big deal out of to make it. Portland cement's not. So, but it's Portland cement, polymer dry latex adhesive, a coloring additive, a dry coloring additive. You can also just use chalk in your ballast. But I find the unsanded grout, when you mix it in, that's what I've done in that pan I had, is I mix it in and shake it around. The small particles of the grout sticks to those small ballast stones, and it will take that dark gray color that are those stones and turn it into the pretty white or very, very light gray that my prototype uses, the Norfolk Western, or like the CSX or NS uses in the South or in the Southeast. It's a very white grout, or it's a very white stone. And then I add more I add more polymer to it a lot of times. You don't have to do that necessarily. You can use glue to stick it down with, but for certain things, I like white glue or Mod Podge. There's not a difference between those. Some of us like to argue amongst ourselves about Mod Podge. I like it because it's a little flatter in color, but really Mod Podge is a PVA, just like white glue. So whatever, does the same job. Just Mod Podge is a little flatter once it's dry. But a lot of people do PVA, but ballast, I find it makes it really hard, really rigid. And the polymer adhesive, the Portland cement tries to get pretty hard anyway, which actually used to be really common as a model railroad scenic technique, because Portland cement is one of the ingredients in zip texturing, if you've ever heard of that. It was really popular in the 60s, 70s, and 80s as a modeling medium before kind of plaster screen gauze took over. And now the scenery goop like I use. Portland cement was really common in zip texturing, but and a lot of European modelers use grout for dirt. So you can get a brown grout, use it as ground cover, and it has that nice kind of rubbery consistency if you don't put white glue or PVA glue or Mod Podge or any kind of glue like that to it, and just let the polymer and heat make Portland cement hardened underwater.
Yeah, just real quick, Paul, if you lose your connection again, if you would go to the queue. Okay, your second one just dropped out. Because sometimes when you keep coming in, your others don't drop out. But you're good. Let me know when you're ready to do that demonstration, Andy.
Yeah, I'll find some parts.
I'll present you. So how you coming with your project on castings there, Jim?
Say that again, John. I missed it.
Well, I got good timing, don't I? If you're eating, that's okay. We can wait, and I'll ask you later.
Okay, give me about 5.
Okay. What was you working on tonight, Phil, if anything?
Oh, I'm still ballasting, Johnny.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
How's that coming?
Well, you saw how it first started. I've gotten into a rhythm, I guess, of how I decided I was going to do it. And it's moving along. You know, I get about try to get about 4 to 6 feet done a day. It's tedious trying to get the right amount, and I don't know, I think I've already done about probably 4 foot today. And it's hard on my eyes, but I'm using the Woodland Scenics, and what I end up doing was taking their light gray, their gray, mixing the two containers together, and then adding a container of leveling sand, play sand. And of course you have to run a magnet through that sand because there is metal fragments in it. And
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yep, there's definitely metal fragments in sand, whether it be actual minerals that, but yeah, you run a magnet over it and you get a lot of little black flecks out of it. So,
Okay.
a hint, when you do that, make sure that you put your magnet in like a sandwich bag and then do it, because if not, then you've got all those metal fragments stuck to your magnet, which is hard to get off. If you do it over with your magnet inside a sandwich bag, you just pull your magnet out of the bag and all those fall off the bag.
Well, turn the bag inside out, then pull the magnet away, and you don't have to clean up the mess.
Well, I do it over my garbage can, so.
Yeah.
But yes, correct. You are correct there.
I've got a few magnets that you actually turn them on and off, so that'd work too.
Right.
I mean, you still get a little bit stuck to it, but you can wipe it off with your hand or a rag once you turn it off.
Yeah. I have found that when I first started, I was using way too much glue. And the glue tends to make it look muddy and actually break down the sand structure.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the woodland scenics, and apparently it's ground walnut shells, but the sizing, they don't have 30, 40, 50. What they go is by fine, medium, and coarse.
Yeah.
And I chose the fine, and I'm modeling HO scale, and that is 0.0103 on average size.
What'd you say? 0.013?
0.0103.
Oh, that's 10,000.
10,000.
Yeah.
Let me get out and scale and mic it and see what it comes out to. Just out of curiosity.
Right. Their medium is 0.033. So that's just over 30 thousandths.
Yeah.
And their coarse is 0.05.
Yeah, Brian out there at the store told me that the fine was more in scale, medium was HO, and the coarse was more for like S scale or something like that.
Right. Well, I looked at the two scales and I felt the fine was closer to the HO scale, just because the track here that I is just less than a mile from my house that I've looked at, and it's small. It's not overly large.
Yeah.
But it's not a main line either. It's a branch line to one industry. So.
Yeah, siding.
Yeah.
Phil, if you're only doing 6 feet a day, I've got 177 feet of track. You're going to take 30 days to get my ballast done for me.
Yeah, I know.
Did you realize that? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I figured what would happen is I would just bring my tent up and throw it up in your yard and come stay with you and Bonnie for, like a month and a half while I did the ballasting and painting your backgrounds and everything.
Well, I got a tent. I'll save you the time having to bring a tent.
Oh, cool.
We'll dig a hole in the ground for the bathroom for you, and we'll set you up.
Cool. You have a grill for me to use?
Hey.
So I can cook some hot dogs?
Well, grill, I thought you said girl. A grill. No, but I got a fire pit out there.
Oh, well, that'll work.
Okay.
You got that pine branch that I'll cut up for you, too, so I can use that to cook my hot dogs.
Oh, you going to cut that up, too?
Yeah, well, you're buying a new chainsaw.
I mean, he's got to have firewood,
That's right. Well, you actually going to cut firewood for me?
Well, yeah, I'm going to have it in the pile. Boy, I'll tell you what, this number 50 in this Scenic Express is so fine. I'm having a hard time trying to get one grain that I can mic. Wow.
Yeah, what I had to do was I took some of the ballast in a zip top bag home with me, and I have a friend who works at a coal analysis lab, and he run it through metered screens, much like these, but they're actually metered for a lab environment to actually measure granule size, and he metered that by running it through stacks of those. They interlock to tell me what size it was. That's the only way I could figure it out. I tried to mic them, and I just couldn't.
Yeah, Scott said, make a bed, LOL. I guess you're going to tuck Phil in too at night, Jim.
No, we got a bear that comes on the property, and I'll let him do it. Okay, that number 50 in the Scenic Express stuff is .019.
19 thousandths.
Yeah, and then the 50, or the number 40, which is definitely bigger. I can actually grab a grain from that. Is come on. .035.
Yeah, just over 32 thousandths, 32nd.
Yeah, almost double the size. If I turn it sideways, that was a long end of that grain. See if I can get it sideways there. Yeah, I got this little itty bitty grain of sand at my fingertip, and I'm trying to mic it. Yeah, it's about .035. So, what did I say the other one was? 19 thousandths?
13, wasn't it? Yeah, 19.
19 and 19 is what? 10, 20, 38. So the number 40 Scenic Express is about twice the size of the number 50 Scenic Express. The number 50 is supposed to be prototypical in size, but I don't believe that because I figured it out what this 40 was, and it was pretty much prototypical to what's in my area. Come out to 3 to 5 inch rocks. This number 40. So for visual, I don't like the 50 in the Scenic Express. I think for visual, I'm going to like the 40 way better. And I kind of wish I had, and my plan was when I bought the 2 half gallons of 40, I thought I'd buy a half gallon of the next size larger and mix that in. So I had it 1 to 3. I guess that'd be 1 to 3, wouldn't it? 1 to 2.
Yeah.
But two number 40s to 1 part number 50. So I'd had a little bit of differential in the sizes of the ballast, by looking at it.
Yeah.
So what was the Woodland Scenics fine that you had, Phil? What size was that?
10 thousandths, just over 10 thousandths.
That was smaller than my light gray, my number 50. It was .019.
Yeah.
Wow, that stuff's really fine.
Well, .019 is 19 thousandths. Phil's was 10 thousandths, yeah. What, he's got a little bit smaller. Almost twice as small, actually.
Right. Wow.
Well, you about set up there, Andy, or?
Yeah. It don't take much. I just grab a couple pads and some screens. That's really all there is to it. There's not that much to this process, so. All right.
I got you presented.
All right. So I use 2 screens. It's hard to say. Let's say the holes in this one are roughly I don't know, they're not an 8th, but they're bigger than a 16th. This one's pretty close to a 16th. I like, this one gives me the size that I'm the most fond of. That's the size that's in that pan I showed you to begin with. So I'm going to do this screen out. I screen out through the larger to kind of get, this rough stuff. And like I said, I just take the biggest. Now, I get some of these rocks, that are decent in size, make really good talus. I use them. I mean, they got a weight to them. There's some actually better ways to produce that talus. But I use some of these, especially some of these others, for fill, to make fills and some of that. But I screen it out and get this fairly fine material. This is not the most interesting process to just do that, but so screen that and then stuff that back in the bag before it hits up the floor, and then run that same material through this small one. Seems to make it a little bit of an easier process to get this really fine stuff out. Alright, so this gives me basically the smaller than and the stuff that wouldn't go through the 2 screens. That's the stuff I want. This stuff right here. And this is kind of the right size for what I'm using. It has a slight, it's larger than prototype, I'll grant you that, but after you glue it down, and I agree with what Phil was saying, something about the process of watering and all that stuff, some of this stuff breaks down some, and I have this finer stuff. And I use these in concert with each other, so I'll use this finer stuff as my initial base layer. And I'll put this stuff down, and I put a lot of times, like between the tracks and stuff on that area, I will paint full strength Mod Podge down and put some of this down. So you get the view of some of this stuff through this, because I put this thin down between the tracks, and it gives you a texture and the right color as the under base, whatever. But it also gives this material some bite. This gives it some bite to glue to, and I use it to, this finer stuff, between the tracks and everything. So I put this down first. Then this. Now coloring it, and I'm sure there's numerous ways to do this, but a small amount of the white, sanded is not that big a deal, but I use the unsanded here. So all it is Portland cement, which is a really fine concrete, and polymer, and which is a latex glue, and the coloring agent, and it will. You have to basically roll all those units around in that material. That's why these pans are so good for that. This is my favorite kind of surface to work off of. I started out working with Rubbermaid containers, and they made it really hard to mix this stuff up. But rolling this stuff around in that dry material. All right, now.
And Andy, that white stuff you put in was the unsanded grout.
Yep, unsanded grout is, and what I buy is the stuff that says unsanded grout with polymer is the one I buy, because it already has the latex additive, latex adhesive additive. All right, and then run it back through the screen one more time, so that all the unsanded grout that didn't stick to those rocks kind of comes through. Don't shake it too terribly much, because you'll lose some of that material. Now that has changed in color from how dark this is to how much lighter that is. If I can get enough light on that so you can see it. That darkness, it whitens it up tremendously, and it's very near white. Let's pick those out of there, but. So that whitens them up. Now, in some cases, you have to, so that you get this whiter material, do the same thing for this. So a lot of what I'm putting down as a base is this real fine stuff with the unsanded grout in it too. Mix those together too, so that you get that good, so you get the lighter color, and so you get that good base to put down between your tracks, and pick your super trees out of here since you reuse your pans like that. And this will lighten up in color tremendously, and it sticks to these. Another way, if you wanted to get some of that grout out of there, if you wanted the smaller materials, you could use a it's got a little bit of super tree scraps in it from making my bushes, but I put it down as the base, no matter. Also, when I'm making gravel roads, I use this smaller material to do that. And what I'll do to make a gravel road, like I've done on my layout, is I will use just the white unsanded grout. Paint glue, put the white unsanded grout down, again, so it has something to bite to, and so that if you see through it, you see that the grout as the underneath, as opposed to pink foam or painted foam or anything smooth. You see a textured material underneath. And then I'll use this material over top of it to make the gravel road. And then I'll take a sanding block and put it on an angle, and using the point of it, and kind of sand tracks in it where where cars ride the tracks in. And then I use chalks on a brush to help color those spots. But that's what I did for gravel roads. So similar technique, but it lightens that. I mean, the color changes tremendously. This is darker, this is lighter, where it's not got mixed, and that color changes from almost white to a reasonably darker gray. This has got some mixed in, but so it changes color, and it works. It works for me, and you can make a pretty good lot of this stuff. I mean, that ain't that much of it, but I can sit down in 10 or 15 minutes and make plenty to work with for a few evenings. And that bag of leveling sand was $5 or something. A couple screens, which is handy for all kinds of stuff. And so, I mean, not only do I like not only is it cheap, and the process is not difficult to do, but it gives me the best result. That's kind of the reason I headed this direction anyway, was because of the result. And I started this. I mean, it's not my idea, stolen on somebody else. I seen a video where Mike Compfolo was talking about it some time ago, and I was like, absolutely, that's the only way to do that. And recently, Bottom Railroad Hobbyist had a short YouTube video on doing the same thing. I've been doing it for a couple of years, but again, I stole it from Mike Compfolo, and I love the result. And it's the same thing as buying Arizona Rock and Mineral, and I have a decent sized layout to do, but it doesn't scare me to do this, and you can get whatever size stones that you can find a screen to give you. If you wanted to get a redder color, then you could use the same material and use a redder color for your grout, as your unsanded grout, to make the coloration. Then you'll want a brighter color for the grout than what you want the end result to do, because all it's gonna just change the pigmentation of it. So you'd want a pretty bright red color just to get kind of an ore color. I've also used black grout on it to try to get it to the color of coal or cinder. Actually, I'm trying to reproduce cinder. And I've had decent luck getting that on the fines, but I've had a hard time getting the larger units to blacken up enough. You couldn't recreate coal with it. That just doesn't work. If you truly want coal, I'm going to use real coal. Run through the screens, bust it up and use through the screen. Also, if I want more of this material out of a bag, I could take some of that medium, the stuff that the smaller, some of these stones. I mean, I wouldn't throw the big gravels in there, but some of these medium-sized stones. Actually, I meant to actually even show you that process, but I run it through a coffee grinder I bought for $5 or $6, and I mean, I run all kinds of things. I think that's what I run through here recently. Was that that's what I run through it recently. Was that, and it works like a charm. I mean, you get pretty good results out of that. Actually, one of my favorite tools to use. Actually, I plan on talking about the tool show. Yeah, a coffee grinder is extremely useful. I also use, like when I'm doing some of the stuff like leaf that I'm prepping for the undercoat of all my wooded area. I grind up leaves. Again, I stole that from Mike Compfolo, so I don't have any original ideas, just to credit them all to him. But I run them through a little food processor. I guess you'd buy it to chop up nuts or something with, because it's fairly small, but it's a food processor, a little larger than a coffee grinder. And I chop up leaves in that, and then I run it through the coffee grinder, but all I do is just tap it a few times. This thing just does this, has this button on it, so you can just kind of pulse it a couple times. You wouldn't want to run it for a long time and kill that thing, busting these rocks up, but you pulse it a few times, and it'll knock some of that material down in size, so you can get some, get a lot more fines out of a bag, so you don't end up dumping the whole bag in the driveway. But I mean, I've used a a small Tupperware container out of that bag worth, and I've seeded a 4-track yard for about 8 feet with that material, and I've still got several Tupperware containers full of this stuff, and it took me 15 minutes to make that material. So, and one of the beautiful things is you could just take the grout, and use that as a base. And this has glue in it. That has dry latex polymer adhesive already in it. So if you take that and spread it out and spray water on it, it will harden up on its own. Now, if you spread it too thin, it won't, but if it has any thickness to it at all, it will harden up on its own. Now, in cases where I could use it thick enough, that works great. In areas like where I just need a very, very thin layer, I add a spoonful of that polymer adhesive to it, about as much as I did the grout, and I roll it around it a little bit, but I leave that a little bit of that dry latex polymer adhesive in it. It's also white, and it will help you get more adhesion, more glue power with it. And this is, once it's dry with the polymer adhesive, it's slightly rubbery. Even though this is concrete at its base, it's slightly rubbery. And you can take a knife and cut it. So that helps with my roadbed method, where I keep the roadbed separate, and I can take the roadbed track to the workbench and work on it, take it back, and if I ever have to cut it loose, I just run a knife through it. It cuts like you're cutting caulk. It's latex adhesive. So you
Andy.
Yep.
Otto wants to know, where do you buy your coal, or where do you get your coal?
Okay, so it's easy for me. I'm in Kentucky, so that makes it a lot easier for me. And I used to work at a coal analysis lab, a sampling lab, and I've got a friend who still works there. And not only does that get me coal, but it lets me pick the coal, so I can get quality grades of coal. And he could run it through screens, not these little kitchen screens, but actually good quality screens that give me a consistent size. Otherwise, there's guys who sell it online. And there was a guy doing it on eBay, and I haven't seen his post in a while. So, honestly, I've thought about just ziplocking some bags of coal and selling it on eBay, because that guy went away. And there's nothing. There's plenty of things there's a good way to recreate. It's not that hard to recreate trees, but it works better with a natural product, in my opinion. It's not that hard to recreate ballast. Again, it works better with a natural product, in my opinion. Same thing for leaves and dirt. I have not found a good substitute for dirt. Woodland Scenics, whatever they call it, but it's basically ground foam, but they have a material that's supposed to be dirt. It doesn't look like dirt, but dirt does look like dirt. So I use dirt, and I screen it through the same process. I do cook the dirt. I don't cook this stone. Also, Phil was talking about running a magnet over it. I absolutely do that. I do not do it until it's glued down. If it's glued down, doesn't matter. What I do is glue it all down, and then I'll come back and vac it and run a magnet over it to make sure I pick up any magnetic material that could break loose and come loose. If it's glued down, it doesn't necessarily matter. But there's also not that much in this, I find. I will say in dirt there's quite a bit. But again, I glue it down, vac it, and then run a magnet over it. I do cook the dirt, and sometimes I'll cook the leaves if I'm in a hurry, if I don't want to dry them out on their own. But I have a window screen I'll lay it out on and let it dry. I take it out on the back porch. But you can cook it, if you catch your wife away from the house. I don't know if I'd want to get caught cooking dirt with her here, but when she's gone, I throw a pan in there and, to the lowest setting with door open a little bit so the moisture can get out for 10 or 15 minutes. It'll dry all the dirt out. Make sure that you kill anything that's in the dirt. Although I've seen numerous people on YouTube, Trackside Scenery, Joey Ricard, he talks about using dirt, using a blender to kind of chop it up. I've done the same thing, also using this little coffee grinder to make the dirt finer for certain textures. For making a dirt road especially, I wanted a really fine consistency, so I busted it up in that and run it through a stocking, like a lady's stocking. And actually what I did is I stuffed it down in the stocking and just pushed and squeezed until the dirt would come through the stocking. But I've seen Luke Towan, another great YouTuber, put it in that stocking and just actually puts it in a cap, like off of a paint can. Puts the dirt in a cap, and then stretches a lady's stocking over it, puts a rubber band around it, and then uses that to sift the dirt on the scenery. That looks like a great technique to me. I just put it in the stocking, hold it as a ball, and kind of squeeze it, shake it, squeeze it, the dirt comes out. Works great.
Well, before we get too far away, Curtis put up here 19 thousandths, meaning on the rock size was good for Z scale.
Well, that would make sense. Even the 13,000, it's like what Phil has. That's what I was thinking, talking about it. Z scale, maybe real fine for N scale. What I've seen out rail fanning, and looking at it, of course, this is not the best reference for 1950 like I model it. I look at pictures a lot from that period, too, to try to figure it out. But from what I've seen out rail fanning, the good size stone tends to be 2.5, 3 inches. I think Jim was pretty close. That seems to be, fist size tends to be about right. That also tends to be about right for coal these days. Now, in 1950, they delivered a lot of different sizes of coal. Most of those print plants delivered 7 or so different sizes of coal, from fines to stoker to egg to crushed or mine run coal. And if you're recreating mine run coal, if you're running it from a mine back to a washer plant or something, you've got to mix some dirt in or something.
Hey, Andy,
Sir.
I just checked and I see Arizona Rock has coal too.
Yeah, I see that. And I'm not against buying any of those things. Not at all. If it makes my life easier, I will. I bought cinder from Arizona Rock and Mineral because I could not find a good way to replicate cinder. I took some very fine coal and mixed black chalk in it because cinder has coal's shiny. Even when it's small, it's shiny. But cinder is not. I've tried mixing ash into it. I've tried mixing chalk into it. Ash lightens the color too much. It's too white. Mixing dark gray chalk into it is close. But I bought cinder from Arizona Rock and Mineral because I couldn't find a good way to replicate cinder. Lex Parker climbed down in the ash pit. In the ash pit at the East Broadtop Museum and sifted cinder out of the East Broadtop Museum to actually get real cinder. That seems like the best thing to do, but I couldn't find a good source for cinder. I have talked to my buddy about it, about taking, they have ovens where they dry coal and some of that stuff, and talked to him about just cooking me some coal down to make cinder. Which is what you'd have to do, or coke. If you wanted to model coke being delivered in coal cars, then that, or Dave probably have to model coke. That's there's a particular size to it. It has a really kind of pelletized look to it, and it has a real distinct color. I guess color may not be the right way to say it. It's not shiny. It's flat in color. Or in texture. So if you wanted to do that, you'd have to take coal and cook it, or cinder's pretty hard. So I'm not against buying it. The problem is I have a decent sized layout, or I'm building toward a decent sized layout, and I've tried to focus my money on the things that mean the most to me. Locomotives, things like that. Laser buildings, things I can't necessarily make in some way. And I have definitely found in so many ways scenically, if I could find a natural product that scales down in size enough, I've had the best luck with the cosmetics of a natural product over an unnatural product. A lot of British people use grout, and I'm not against that at all. A lot of people use ground foam. I'm not against that if it works for you, but I'm less fond of ground foam. But grout works pretty good. But natural's a surefire. You put dirt down, it looks like dirt. It's hard to make it not look like dirt.
Okay, I was just doing a little figuring here, and it's just a terrible thing when I start thinking.
Oh.
This number 50 was 0.019 19 thousandths. In HO scale, 0.3 millimeters is 1 HO scale foot, which is 11.
Say that one more time. Right here.
0.3 millimeters is 1 inch in HO scale.
Wow. Okay.
So that equals to almost 12 thousandths.
So what Phil has is roughly 1-inch modules. That's
right.
gravel you put in your driveway.
So this number 50, which is a .019, that's a half a millimeter. So that's darn near 2 inches in HO scale. And then the .036 is 0.9 millimeters. So again, that's about 3 inches. So the number 40 that I bought is really pretty close to scale, to a scale of 3 to 4 inch rocks.
When you look at that, can you see see what I found when I had when I had something that was to scale, or what I figured out was to scale, assuming I was correct about that figure, it looked a little too much like sand. It didn't have a lot of
it looks like sugar sand.
Yes.
What would be a 2-inch rock?
Yeah, and see, that gravel that I made is more like 4.5, 5-inch stones. But
if 0.3 is 1 inch, then 0.5 is slightly under 2 inches, an inch and 3/4, I guess.
Yeah.
None of the ballast on the tracks by where I went and looked had rocks really that small. Most of them were 2.5 to 4.
Yeah, that's what I see too.
So the .036, the 36 thousandths, is actually pretty darn prototypical for my area, which was the number 40 in Scenic Express.
Yeah.
So the number 50, again, I don't know, or the number 30, I'm sorry, which is larger yet. I didn't order any, so I don't know for sure if that's double the size. But the 40 is double the size of the 50, basically.
So in theory, it's...
So in theory, the 30 might be double the size of the 40 or triple the size of the 50.
But I found, to me, the stones that to scale are around 4 or 5 inches. Yeah, I understand. I generally try to be prototypically accurate. But just looking at it, it doesn't look right. The larger stones look right to me.
Right.
I know it's wrong.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm getting my camera so I can show you guys.
No, I was going to tell you, when you get a chance, Scott put a link up here for a scale calculator in the chat.
Yeah, I've got a scale calculator, but when you try to scale that small, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or the one I have doesn't work.
Gosh, yeah, that is fine. That looks like aquarium sand.
Yeah, if you turn this camera so I'm getting both of them equally there. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I mean, that is really fine sugar sand.
So that's what size is that?
That's the number 50, and that's what they say is prototypical.
Yeah, I guess.
They say it's fine for N scale and prototypical for HO. This is what most people use.
I like that okay. That's smaller than what I'm producing.
And then the 30 is what, I bought this, thought this was larger. I bought 2 of these. So I bought this, was going to add 1 of these to 2 of these, mix it together. So I had a little bit larger in with this, but sure. I ended up with smaller because the girl at Scenic Express apparently didn't know what she was talking about.
When you make gravel roads with it, you could use it as an undercoat first and then put the other on top. It's not like you'll waste the material necessarily. I don't know.
I'm not. I still might just go ahead and mix this 1 to the 2 of these and just use it. I mean,
Sure.
But yeah, that's really fine. If anybody knows what sugar sand is, this stuff is really like a sugar sand.
Yeah, Scott said you could use that for a beach.
Right. Which is what sugar sand usually is in.
Yeah. There's all kinds of places to use it. It's not that big a deal to use it. And I can make the material that fine by making it. I'm just not happy with it. It doesn't look like individual stones to me when I look at the track work.
Yeah, and when you run your finger through it, I mean, you can just feel the difference. This is almost as smooth as silk when you're running through. Now, and I did this on another show, and I'm not doing it today. I did draw some iron particles out of this ballast, but then again, like Andy said, once you have it glued down, you shouldn't have a problem with that anyways.
Try to get this to where you can see. If you look at it, you can see the granules. You can see that it looks too close, sort of. It looks particulate. You can see the granules of ballast, and that's what I preferred. Like between the tracks, you could see that there's individual granules of ballast in there. Of course, that's colored and stained and has static grass on it and all that jazz. Let's see if there's a clear spot. That's kind of clear. There, you can see that there's particulate material. It looks like rock. It is too large. And like you guys know, I prefer to be prototypical in size, but this looks better to me. That looks like what I want a stretch of track to look like.
This, if I remember right, this is the number 40 that I did on here. See if I can get that to come in so you guys can see it. Yeah, which way am I turning this thing?
I always have a hard time with that on camera.
Right there. Right there. You're focused.
Am I? Okay.
Yep.
That's the number 40 if I remember right.
There's a slight particulate look to it, but it's pretty fine.
Yeah, I think I'd gone with the 30s. When you get this close up, yeah, you can see the granules.
Right. That might be the I don't remember when I did this piece if it was the 30 I had out of the 40, and it almost kind of looks like the 40 or the 50. It almost
just take
looks
a
like
pinch of that 40 and put it on there, and we can see it.
Oh man, you make me work that hard?
Well, that's what I did to figure out what size I wanted. I laid 2 pieces of flex track down on a board, or 2 or 3 pieces down, and just poured a little bit on and took a brush and brushed it in like it was going to be. I took a picture of it so I could look at it for a few days and to figure out what size I liked, and I just didn't like the fines. While he set that up, if you want to ask a couple of questions, something, Curtis Hunt, the Q&A, asked, what is coke? Coke is coal that has been baked to increase the carbon and to increase the BTU, so they use it to produce steel for the most part. So Dave will know more about
the blast furnace.
What's that? Yeah, the blast furnace. Yeah, and Dave will know more about that because that's exactly what he models is a steel producing industry. I model the coal industry, so there's some connectivity there, but it raises the carbon count, molecules of carbon in it. Decreases impurities, increases BTU, and lets you cook at a higher temperature at a more controlled temperature.
Yeah, I'm also modeling the steel industry and the coal industry, too. Mostly beehive ovens. It depends on your era what kind of coke ovens you want to go with.
Yep. Yeah, I model the beehive coke ovens as well. In 1950, that's what they used as well, and I will have a few of those on my layout as well, the beehive ovens.
Okay, there, let's see. Right there by this finger, that's the...
Go ahead, Jim.
Right there by this finger, that's the 50.
I like that better.
And that is the 40.
No, I like the 40 better.
50, 40.
Yeah, I really like that 40. That 40's nice.
So like I say, that's supposed to be, like I say, that's, what did I say, 1.5 inch rock?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 inch rock in real scale. And that's 2 to 3 inch. 136 is 0.39. Yeah, so that's about a 3-inch rock prototypical.
That looks great. I like it. You can see the particular size.
Scenic Express number 40 is about a 3-inch. So that really is, to me, is the prototypical for my area anyways.
It
3-inch.
looks good when you zoom in on it that close. When I was looking at my track work, I was setting back about 2 feet from it, which is kind of a foot to 2 foot is the typical distance I am from my track, a foot. And I wanted it to still look particulate when I looked at it at that size.
Yeah.
And you can see the leftovers I left on the ties here and here. So you can see the grain size I was trying to pick up
God,
to measure,
oh,
compared to that grain size there. So you can see it is double the size there.
Yeah.
those look right. They look like the ballast that's occasionally set on top. An individual stone that's occasionally set on a tie looks like that. That looks right to me.
David up here in the Q&A, he said, my guess is the number 50 is the mesh size that the screen is that they
Okay.
use to filter. And
Oh,
they
yeah.
put the link up to Wikipedia.
Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. That buddy of mine that works in the coal industry is when he screens that coal for me, he's using mesh sizes to get me the right size.
Yeah,
So
they
now I know what to tell him. I want coal that's mesh 50.
yeah, because the screens are numbered, and that's how they'll
Yep.
label the different size rocks. It's by the screen it went through.
Well,
Yep.
let me ask you guys this: is the smaller in the yards? Would it be the smaller, or would it be a larger?
Well, okay. So here
So if I
is
did all my main line and secondaries is in the larger, would I want to use the small fine stuff in a yard?
so here's these mesh sizes. So like a mesh size, standard mesh of 50 would be. Is that? Let's see. Opening wire bill grade. I gotta figure this out. Opening in. I don't see a way to measure that. It's in inches. Yeah, right here in inches. It's that much of an inch. That percentage of an inch. So I guess you'd times that by 87 to figure out the scale. That's a mesh 50. Is that decimal point of an inch? In actual,
12 thousandths of an inch.
yeah, in actual inch. That's what 50 is, according to this. Yeah, the opening.
Yeah.
That's right. The opening is that.
And I had 19 thousandths. That was only 12 thousandths. Scroll back up to 19 thousandths. 0.019 or close to 0.02.
Well, 0.0125 is the next size up. Oh, that is well, no, that's mill grade, so that's a mesh 50. Yep, a mesh 50 is 0.0125. There it is.
Okay, and then the 40 on mine was a 0.036.
Yeah, this is 0.0165, so 16 thousandths of an inch, 16.5 thousandths of an inch.
So they're not using that apparently then for their number 40s.
Or they're not accurate to it, I guess.
Well, who knows what they're using their number 40 is? I mean, who knows?
Well, and there's a few ways to calculate this mesh. So there's this way to calculate it according to this mill grade mesh. There's this market grade mesh too. So if you go off of that, 50 is, 0.01, that'd be 1,000ths of an inch.
11 thousandths.
Yeah, okay, yeah, 11,000, sorry. Then 40 would be 15.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. So they're going off this market grade.
No, that's even worse.
Oh, okay. All right.
We got to go 19 thousandths and 36 thousandths.
Well, they have this tinsel bolted cloth. Boy, it's amazing what you do as a model railroader, isn't it?
Well, I don't do all that. My amazing is I bothered to take the time to try to pick those little pieces of grain crap up and put a mic to it.
Yeah, tried to mic it. I tried that too, and I couldn't do it. So I had that friend of mine run it through meshes. Now he understands this stuff. This is Greek to me. I'm going to take this chart and take it to him and tell him this is what size coal I want.
Well, David also said yards are usually cinders.
Well, that was true in the coal era, but that ain't true in a diesel era, is it?
Well, it has a lot to do with time periods. Cinders were common in the steam era, yes.
Plus, I'm sure not everywhere would have cinders anyway.
In my era, cinders were sometimes used in industrial areas, in yards, less often used in yards, more often used in engine facilities and industrial areas. And then cinders were also used along the sides of the main line. The EPA would have a field day with that these days, but back then they used it to kill brush and growth along the side of the right-of-way. So they would pour cinders down and then ballast on it. So what I've done on my main lines is I put cinders down first, about a 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch off the side of the right-of-way. I make that strip about a 1/4 inch wide, but it's rough, and then I put ballast down overlapping it. But you do not see that in the modern era because of EPA regulations. You will not see cinders used. The only thing you'd ever see is some coal spillage.
So can anybody tell me, is the yard usually a smaller rock, or is the yard it's the same as the mainline rock, or is the yard larger than the mainline rock?
No, they normally put the same ballast down, but they don't maintain it as well. And over time, and it getting wet and it shaking around, it often ends up smaller material, busted up, broken down, more dirt mixed in, whatever. But they put the same ballast down when they're actually doing it.
Gotcha.
Usually, also on industry sightings, depending on who owns them, they'll be just sitting on the ground. Like the steel mills, they were not really they weren't even ballasted most of the time.
Nope.
Actually, pretty much all the time. They just didn't have any ballast on them. They were just sitting on the ground.
Yeah, it's covered with dirt. I mean, they just dump dirt on them.
You might go whatever looks nice to you.
Do what, Andrew?
I'd say Jim should go with what he thinks looks nice on his layout.
Oh, we got to be prototypical now, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sugars.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
Well, I mean, even me, and I go for prototype as much as possible, and I went for something with ballast that's not accurate to prototype because it looked better. So, what is prototype and what looks prototype are not always the same thing.
Exactly.
So you got to remember that this is an illusion that we're creating, and that illusion sometimes means you have to fake things. Some things have to be smaller, some things have to be larger to kind of reinforce the illusion.
I got some homework for everybody that's on the panel and anybody that's in the Q&A that would like to do this for next Thursday. Find some track local to your area, walk up to it without getting arrested, and pick up what looks like a medium average size rock and measure it. And then come back next Thursday and tell us what scale or what size the ballast is in your area. Ballast size is.
I'm game. I haven't had homework in a long time. I'll take that. I'll take the Pepsi challenge on that.
So everybody's like, because I am curious to see how much it differs. I mean, I know
Do we pick a small rock or a big rock?
Average.
An average. What looks average? Because there's going to be some a little smaller, some a little bigger. I understand that. So just kind of look at the ground and between the rails or whatever, and say, okay, this one looks about average with everything that's laying down there. Pick it up and measure it, and just, I mean, you ain't got to do a sample of 10 out of 12 or anything like that. Just 1 or 2 if you want, and come back next Thursday and say, okay, I live in this area, and mine was 2 1/4 inches or 3 inches, or we ain't got to get down. You ain't got to mic it and get it to the thousandths of an inch or nothing, but just so we get a general idea of where you guys live and what size ballast you have. And if you want, let us know what color it was. If it was a all light gray, or if it was a gray with black peppered in it, or
tell us what type of traffic it is. Is it a heavy main line that's used all the time? Is it just a little branch that's barely used? Was it a siding somewhere? Give us an idea of where it is to expect. Yeah, that's it. That's good.
Hillbilly Railroaders said done.
Yeah, Billy. That Garden State Central, that's the calculator I use, but you can't put in 1 inch in standard scale and see what size it is in HO scale.
I won't go that
It
small.
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't like to go down like that. So
Yeah. With a
that's
Phoenix one on your phone won't do it either. It won't go that small.
yeah. I know that 3.5 millimeters is an HO scale foot. And I'm not a decibel person, millimeter person. I mean, but 3.5 millimeters is easy for me to remember as 1 scale foot. So I divided that by 12, and I come up with almost 0.3 of a millimeter. So 0.3 of a millimeter is pretty much 1 inch HO scale. And then I use my handy dandy millimeter, decibel, and fractional chart. I printed off the internet and figured it out. So I didn't work real hard, but hard for me.
All right, Curtis put up here. They just put in new stone on the main line and the spurs, and it was the same rock for both.
Yeah. They did the same thing in the steam mirror too. They use the same stone for everything. Typically milled or run, pulled from a crusher local, so it tends to be local to the area. That's why up around Chicago they're using a kind of pink ballast stone, because that's what, along the Chicago Northwestern, it's kind of famous for being pink, a pink colored ballast, because that's what the quarry mines locally.
One more thing, and I'm not knocking Arizona rock mineral. Don't anybody think I'm doing that. Don't call up Arizona rock mineral and tell them I'm giving them bad mouthing. But I was looking at the price, and it's $5 a bag. Most HO scale ballast weighs anywhere between 6 and 11 ounces for $5. My number 50 weighed 6.6 pounds, and my number 40 ran 5.6 pounds. So they're getting $5 for an average of 8 ounces, a half a pound. So they're getting about double what Scenic Express is charging.
And that's a lot more expensive than Menards, because my bag from Menards was 40 pounds and it was $5.
Yeah, but we're talking about,
I know.
What's your time worth? No, that's cool. I wish you would have told me that before I spent all that money on that ballast. I might have tried that.
Oh, you wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah, well, no, no, Andy, I wouldn't listen to you. That's why I have over $100 invested in tree scenery making materials.
All right.
So, yeah, okay, I don't listen.
All right, David, to comment up here. I always use 0.011 11 thousandths to the inch rule of thumb.
11 thousandths. Yeah, that's what you come up with too. Right.
Yeah, I come up with 0.118, 0.0118. And that was actually a little hair, so his 0.011 was probably dead on the barrel head, watching my language. Yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you what, there's been a lot of math in tonight's Hangout. That's pretty interesting, though. It just goes to show how far we go to model and to try to get it accurate. But as much as I try to get things accurate, too, and don't, I think Arizona Rock and Mineral is a good product. I think Scenic Express has a good product. I go out of the way to make my own, and that's not always necessary. It's awful easy to make your own, but there's nothing wrong with either of those products. And if you like Woody's product, so be it. It just didn't work for me. I know Phillips had good luck with it. Actually, Philip, your ballast looked pretty good to me on camera.
I agree. His ballast looks pretty good. And I'm not trying to beat up Woody's either. I just thought, okay, I want to use real rock.
Yep.
Doing a Tim Allen laugh there. And I also was going to use the Arizona rock and gravel, or whatever they call themselves. That was going to be my original choice till I started figuring out how much it was going to cost me. And I went, ooh,
Yeah, and if you're doing a layout of any size, like what you're doing or what I'm doing, I'll tell you what, you use a lot of ballast.
And the Arizona rock and mineral, they have more color choices.
Oh yes.
that's picked out for certain railroads, I guess. I mean, because I was looking through the different colors they've got. They've got buku colors, whereas Scenic Express doesn't. So
But they
if
have
they,
some other, and they have some really other interesting scenic products too, like for making trees. They have some tree arbiter material for making undergrowth and stuff that looks. I'm going to buy some and try. It looks really, really interesting. I just bought some new grass, really tall grass from. Oh gosh, I had it right on the tip of my tongue. I was just showing it to you guys the other day from I'll tell you in a minute, but it's incredible looking stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't Selkirk. It was.
Right, that's where I get my leaf flake. I'll find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to show how crazy you spent half the show
I
talking
dealt
about.
with them years ago. I dealt with Arizona Rock years ago, and he sent me a couple little sample packets. I could have
yeah, they
had
do have a thing on there to ask for samples, and I think
Yeah.
Scenery Express will too. I don't remember. I'm going to give them a call though and give a piece of my mind about their whoever it was that answered my questions, giving me the opposite of what I needed to know.
Yeah, maybe they'll send you a freebie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they'll say sorry about that, but just let them know I'm a little perturbed. I wish I'd have bought it from them, because then I'd request them to pay for the shipping and ship it back to them. But I got a good deal on it at modeltrainstuff.com.
This was from Sweetwater Scenery, and they had one of the best color dry grass material. I've had the hardest time finding. This is that small particulate grass, whatever. And it's the kind of grass you would not. It's not static grass. Dock makes really a good brown color of static grass. Woodland Scenics brown static grass is I don't like the color. This is an exceptional dry, underbrush grass color. I really like that. And their green color is pretty bright. It actually doesn't look really good there, but I put a little sample down. It looks pretty good. This is Sweetwater Scenery. I think they went out of business, but I'm sure they did. But I found a lot of that stuff on eBay. Again, something I got from Mike Compload. He used some Sweetwater Scenery to make grass look like it was packed down, like it was like spring grass was just coming out from under a thaw, and he put this static grass down, or this stuff down from Sweetwater Scenery, and packed it down with his thumb into the white glue, and it gave this compacted grass look that looked really incredible. And that is the best approximation color I've seen for that kind of hay-colored, tall grass. Yeah. That those horseweed. Johnny? I think you're the guy who called it like a horseweed or something.
Oh, sageweed, sage fruit.
Yeah, and that's hard to bottle. It's hard to get the right color for. Woodland Scenics and these guys have like one that's just way too light in color. It's way too yellow.
Yeah. All right, Andrew's got a comment.
I was trying to say something earlier on until the microphone played up. Just to go to show how crazy we are. We spend, half an hour, three-quarters of an hour talking about rocks.
You'd be proud of us for using the metric system at least, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you got to use metric. This silly foot and inches and chains and yards and whatever.
Yeah, we go to so much trouble to figure some of these things out. But that's what it's all about. Going to all the effort to try to get it right. And if you don't go to all the effort, you won't get it right, and it won't look right. You may not. You look at some model railroads, pictures, YouTube videos, whatever, and they're wrong. Sometimes you can't even put your finger on exactly what's wrong, but there's things that are wrong. So the closer you get to right, the closer you get your ballast to look right, the closer you get the color of tall grass, the better you're approximating what you're trying to model.
Yeah,
I tell you what, we're coming up. We've already ate up an hour and a half. So keeping in the steel business. Hey, Dave, you still there?
Yes, sir.
Since we already talked about rock and cinder and coal and everything else, I thought maybe we might talk about Hewletts.
Boy, you really got a sore subject with me right now.
You want to unpresent me?
Oh yeah.
Can
Now,
I
Dave, I'd
present
love to see
something?
those.
Hang on, Dave. Newcastle, what was that?
Can I present something?
All right, go ahead. Well, I got you.
Okay, if my camera comes in good enough. So, you guys been doing operations on with the track planner guy. One thing you in the car cards and waybills. One thing you guys didn't talk about was haven't talked about yet is job cards, and they're pretty much just like the information, just a basic get a little bit more help to the operators. They
Yeah, back off
just
just a little
spin
bit. Hold it back away from the camera a little bit so we can see it better. There you
these
go.
are job cards, and they pretty much tell the information of each train in a simple card, and they just fit in the card boxes. Like this one says Freedom Pittsburgh Freight, Freedom Station to Conway Station, leave passenger cars at Conway Station, do work at Conway Yard, then pick up passenger cars at Conway Station and run back to Freedom, Main 2. This is actually a mixed freight. And you have to have a train order run on the main line under notes. You have to have a train order to run on the main line and 3-car limit at Conway Yard restriction. And then I also have an extra card here. It says extra trains are fair to regular trains. Extra train authorized by timetable schedule must design extra by engine number, run as needed, notes, work at industries or yard track in territory given by dispatcher. You have to have, and then all the restrictions, and you have to have a train order. So another thing, you gotta have for certain towns, you also have to have definitely have to have like I know that what's his name though, Bill, the used to be Catastrophe Railroad, or might be still going under that.
Oh,
So
Big Bill.
yeah, he just put up signs. The one thing about those signs, they don't actually have a track plan underneath them, and that really helps the operators. See here, it says Jake. This is one of my simple industries. Jacob Coal Company, 1, 2, 3. There's 3 spots, and then main up there, and that's where I have a single track main. And then I also have it also shows north and south, and the town or industry name up top too of the location. That just has one industry in that part of the layout. So I just call that location Jacob Coal Company because actually the mine is the main thing. I also have caboose cards. Right here it says caboose number BNO 282 region and division. Because I'm modeling the Pensy and modeling in the 40s and 50s. During that time there was caboose pulls. I think I don't know, on my division there is. I haven't got around to researching that. So I have
Boost cards.
place signing those in.
Well, the next time Bill's in, you should bring some of this up. I thought he talked about job cards once already, but you might want to join the next one that Bill, the track planner's on, and show him what you've got and what you do, and you two discuss that because that's what his shows are all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also have they're kind of a train order track warrant almost, so it's DT&C because the Pensy was actually operating in manual block territory on my division. Instead of having stations, I just have signs, and these are just like Form G on the top. Pretty much that just to authorize to use that part of the railroad. Or full. It's pretty much giving an extra train because I don't have a timetable. It just gives an extra train authorized to run. Then under there, I also have the blocks, and they're just checkbox. You just check off block 1, and I have signs at each end of the track. And that block is not occupied, I just say you got permission to run block 1. And then I also have meat trains, and then orders and OS points. And then on here, if I'll just go over that one again, though, over here I also have a sequence list, and these are only regular trains. And then I have a checkbox because I actually run lone wolf style, and then I have operating sessions. I just leave off where I went off from the sequence list, and then after the session ends, I come back and re-erase these. They're in a plastic sleeve, and then I do flip the waybills, and pretty much because my layout staging actually is a back end, you back into it. It's kind of like it's end of a loop, and you back into staging. I don't have to turn around the trains. I didn't really want to do that. I just have Youngstown Freight, Cleveland Freight, and then the information again on the sequence list for the dispatcher of the train.
Yeah, that's good. Like Jim said, bring that up next time when Bill's on.
A little tip for those sheets you're using there that you're rubbing off. Make sure they're clean, laminate them, then use a whiteboard marker. That way, when you want to use them again, just have to rub them with a cloth and you can use them again.
That's what I said. I actually got them in like an office plastic sleeve, and I used a dry erase marker pretty much, and we just re-erase them and use them again. I'm on a budget because just chore money mostly. One problem I have with JMRI, one thing you can't decide which cars you're going to actually move. You have to pick up those so many cars, and you can't off spot it really. The second problem I have with JMRI is every time you print out a switch list, that's more money going into the operating session. If your printer's out, you're pretty much all your paperwork switch list is screwed. And the ink, you got ink and the paper, more money put down before the session. You already got snacks, or I actually have a small group. I actually usually do it like a division meeting, and we actually have a little lunch.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing on mine is putting the switch list where we use iPods to control it anyway. My switch list and the waybills all stay on the iPod. So you just look at the iPod for your orders, flip back to your throttle. It's all on the iPod.
What was that question that you asked, Dave? Because I don't even know what that word was. I'm curious.
I'm fixing. All right, Jim. I'm fixing to get back to it. Okay. Newcastle.
One thing, a problem with my what did I see?
Yeah.
I now forgot the question. Now I forgot my answer. So
Newcastle. I tell you
here's
what.
my rule book.
Yeah, Newcastle.
Yeah.
I tell you what. Why don't we do this one on next week? Okay. So we kind of got in a roll about coal bills, about the coal industry, and I want to get Dave up here before we close the show out.
Okay.
All right. I mean, you got some good stuff there. We'll be interested
I've been
in hearing
operating for at least 3 weeks. 3 years, and actually, I don't know many operating layouts.
Yeah. Well, come on back in. Come on back in next Thursday. Come on back in next Thursday, and we'll be glad to go over all this then. Okay. We'll do kind of like an operating show.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, you got some good stuff there.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to get back to Dave now.
Okay.
All right, Dave. We're going to get back to Hewlett's. Yeah.
I was hoping he was going to save me for the night.
Well, I mean, you have done some posting of what you've been doing, but I thought we'd kind of highlight that a little bit during the show here.
Yeah, it's I'm actually on. God, I've got out of the 2 of them, if I could pick this up without breaking it. This has turned into a big old 2-week ordeal. We have, back up, the first section of the base done, finally, for both Hewletts. I do have the other mechanism that sits on top of it still drying, and we do have part of the dinosaur head here that is been nothing but a nightmare, as you can see by all them girders in there. So we've been having a little bit of fun building these, and this is like a 3 to 4 week kit because I've been working on them 4 or 5 hours a night every night for the last 2 weeks.
What's a Hewlett?
They unload the ore boats back up until about the up until the 1990s in Cleveland. It's basically like your ore bridges you have now, but just an older version that ran off of 240 volts.
Is it like a crane with an open scoop on the bottom, like a scoop loader?
Yes, yeah. That's why I wish I had this thing more done to show you, so that you guys. It's hard to in pieces to put everything together and get a glimpse
the box
of
top?
it. I do have one of them. If I don't dump everything all over, but yeah.
That's the reason why they pay me for this.
Okay. Let's see if I can get it out of the glare. Go this way with it, yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
And that's called a Hewlett.
I'm going to have one where it's modeled into the ore boat. The other one will be modeled in the open position up in the air like it is on the box lid, but I will have a old school front end loader hanging from chains being lowered into the ore boat to pick up the rest of the ore out of the bottom of the buckets.
They loaded an end loader into the barge or the loader with the crane, and then that pushed the coal into a pile to pick up.
Yep. And they even did it on barges as well. When they were running the barges like up the Ohio River and stuff like that for like Ashland and a few of the other small mills that they couldn't get the freighters into.
Yeah, they still have those on the, I guess it's the Kentucky River out here in western Kentucky. See, in eastern Kentucky, I'm used to coal trains calling all coal, but out here they have barges running up to the Kentucky River, and they have conveyors for miles and miles and miles hauling it back to that barge location, and they have a crane system, but it don't look like that thing. That thing's ridiculous looking.
Yeah, that's why they call them the old dinosaurs, because that's exactly what they look like when they're fully put together and actually in operation. And I wish I would have been a little bit more pushing with my parents when I was younger to go and watch these things. And unfortunately, it's the only thing you're going to see on them is in a history book. So.
Yeah, having a video of one actually operating would have been good too.
There is a couple of videos on YouTube. I'm actually in the process right now researching for lights. These things were lit, and I'm to that point where I want to start running wires and everything before I get too far down the road. But I'm having an issue finding nighttime operation where I can find good pictures. But it'll come in time.
Does Green Frog videos, because I go to them as like my go-to source for a lot of this historical stuff, do they not have any on those? Because they cover that geographic region a lot.
I have not looked on there. I have just started researching the lights this week. So between working double shifts and longer hours because the wife is off of work right now on medical, so I'm sort of limited on what I've been doing. If I get a free minute at work, I'll jump on my phone and look, but that's not too often lately.
Well, you should be safe. I'd say your boss isn't listening to this, so you might be all right. But speak that a little bit.
I don't care if he does listen, because half the time he texts me on the shop phone, "What are you doing?" "I'm searching my phone. What else am I doing?" You know.
Well, Green Frog's a good one. There's another one too called I had it right on the tip of my tongue. Another historic Green Frog's kind of the go-to one, but there's another one that I get some great videos from, and they seem to be that they have some stuff from out west too, but they have a whole lot of stuff from my region and your region. Seem to be kind of the focus of a lot of their videos.
Right.
Huron Rail or Huron, something like that, that does a lot. I think it's Huron, Hurroen or something. Also has a whole lot of historical videos. You have to buy a whole lot of them, but you can buy them online. And if you find one that you just love and pay $15 for the video footage so you can download it, then to me it was worth the $15. Their videos are exceptional and they're 2 hours long. I'll gladly pay $15 if it saves me a whole lot of time and research of reading. So.
Oh yeah, of course. I know that Dwight is not on the panel tonight, and I know he was asking about some of the stuff that I posted up previous on this Hewlett. Basically, you have your, let's see if I can get it up high enough. Up inside there, I just slid in the dumps. They slide back and forth, up and down the Hewlett to where the cars are at. Between the legs, there's usually 4 tracks, and then you have, which, mind you, this is not finished yet, but you have the mech. Let me grab it at a different spot.
Are you planning on trying to animate that?
Yeah, it slides back, it goes up, and then as it comes forward, it's got a big long neck, which is not even considered being built yet, but it reaches down, and picks up, slides back, it dumps it into the chute, and then it'll just go ahead and dump it right into the cars underneath it, or go out to the back over here, and it'll dump it into a big old ore yard like your ore dock knows now.
Cool.
Did you say you were going to mechanize that? Are you going to try to put servos and stuff in that?
I'm going to try.
Wow.
I have seen, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, somebody had done this through the steel mill modelers, through the group, and I believe they took it to one of the conventions in Pennsylvania when they had the SIG group out there. And I watched a video of it. It's on Peach Creek Hobbies website, and it's amazing, how he did it. And I would love to have one of these where it is operational.
Was that on a modular section? Because I think I seen that.
Yeah, it was on like a 2x3 white foam board.
Yeah, I seen the video of that. It was unbelievably impressive.
Yeah,
hey, John.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go start the after show hangout.
Okay.
And hey, Jim, before you take off,
Yo.
Our steel mill, we exclusively do mailboxes.
All right. Well, when you come in the after show hangout, I'll tell you the size I'm looking for.
So we might have found the guy that you spent all night talking to about mailboxes already. Either that, or you're gonna spend all night talking to him about mailboxes.
Oh no! As you see on the wall behind me, the clock, it says midnight. My time is getting limited because I got to be up early.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll tell you what. With that, I think I'll just go ahead and end the show. Thank you, David.
No problem. Thank you, John.
For that.
Hey, under the Sensa thing on when you click on, it shows everybody joining under here, the chat thing, or I posted the link to the Hewlett's in Cleveland, YouTube videos, ongoing call after you call in, shows you when you click on the thing. YouTube video.
I'm not seeing it.
I'm not seeing it either. You put it in a totally different place there, Castle.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah.
All right. Just want to say, Bruce, thank you for the comment. Dwight, thank you for your comment. Both of them basically said, thanks for the effort tonight, to me and to the presenters.
Good show, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, y'all the ones that make the show. Everybody in the Q&A make the show. I just sit here and try and keep order, somewhat.
Good luck.
Can I ask just one question?
Sure.
Andy, you still there? Andy?
Yes, sir.
Just a fast question. The push button, am I better off with a 2-pin or 3-pin?
2-pin, just a single contact.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Alrighty, I think I got this thing working right now. Alrighty, I want to say thank you to everybody on the panel. Paul, Newcastle, Mr. Hawks, Dave, Andrew, Andy, Jim, Phil, for coming in tonight. We did have a good show. Got stuck it with steel work and railroad ballast, different sizes and colors. I want to thank you, Andy, for the demonstration on how you use level and sand and get the different grades there. I want to say keep checking in on the YTMBbuilders.com website for all the latest news and info on the Tuesday night presentations, which are every other week now. The e-magazine comes out bi-monthly, and the live show schedules. The live show is once every month, and next show is going to be the 21st of this month. Big Bill's the host. Barry is the director of the show. The e-mag is bi-monthly. Comes out every other month, so we got one coming out this month. Tuesday's presentations, like I said, are every other week now. Thursday's general hangout still every Thursday of each week. All shows do start at 9:30 Central Time, and very rarely will we change that, but occasionally we might.
I'm coming.
Okay.
Sorry, I accidentally forgot I even had the microphone on. Sorry.
That's all right. But want to say thank you for participating in tonight's show. Want to thank the viewers and thank everybody on the panel. And with that said, this is another show in the can. So y'all have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. Good night.